Also getting some recognition from officials in Las Vegas as well.
Sarah Ashton Cirillo was honored for her work in Ukraine today at Las Vegas City Hall. She served as a war correspondent since March, and recently she enlisted as a combat medic, serving on the front lines with other soldiers. She originally went to Ukraine to write about the refugee crisis. Numerous lawmakers, including Governor Sisolak, Congresswoman Dina Titus, and Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, gave her certificates of recognition for her work overseas.
The reasons I'm fighting along with every other soldier are the reasons that the people in the United States and elsewhere can enjoy the lives they have here.
And this week, she also met with members of Congress and was even asked to give one of her military uniforms to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Ukraine, okay, and the war against Russia going on over there, because this is a big question in Congress, okay? Vladimir Zelensky has come over here and got on his knees and begged the politicians for $25 billion more. Now, some politicians, like the Democrats, want to give Zelensky a blank check, okay? Because, hey, we just have to keep sending money to Ukraine because they're fighting Russia, Putin bad, therefore we should just send an unlimited amount of money, even though we don't have a clear end goal, right? We don't have a strategy to de-escalate and to eventually try to bring about peace, to move on past this war, okay? And some people in the GOP are actually asking questions about the establishment and what is the actual strategy here in regards to the end goal, and what are we trying to get out of continuing to send billions and billions of dollars to support the war in Ukraine.
Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, wants everyone to know why we need to keep spending this money, and this is what he said.
I think it's very clear to us and to many in Congress that this additional assistance is something that Ukraine needs in this moment. It's not only the right thing to do, it's the smart and necessary thing to do in our own interests.
In our own interests. Well, the American people don't think so, and certainly it looks like a majority of Republicans do not think so. So that means Senate leadership is not representing the desires and concerns and the priorities of their own constituents.
Absolutely right, Laura. And you hear this slogan again and again. It's not just the right thing to do, but it's in our own interest. But they never define how it's in our own interest. And here's what this war is costing us. Potentially a worldwide food crisis, because Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. God forbid a potential nuclear war if this thing escalates further. Europe already has an energy crisis. We're destabilizing allied governments in Eastern Europe because they can't afford food or fuel for their citizens. So we're not just sending $150 billion. We're actually causing significant problems for ourselves. It is not in our interest to continue to fund this indefinitely.
Yeah, so there you have it. That is J.D. Vance, who is basically saying, look, we shouldn't be funding this indefinitely. It's actually not in our best interest. But hey, you know, the politicians on Washington, they believe that it's a great idea, okay? Like that worked out in Iraq or Afghanistan or Vietnam. Any of these places where we didn't have a clear strategy in regards to what the hell are we doing here, okay? It hasn't worked out lately, but hey, this time it's going to work, okay? And when the straight white male White House press secretary substitute was asked about J.D. Vance's comment, apparently he didn't really know what J.D. Vance meant by de-escalation or the end goal.
Well, one of the points that J.D. Vance raises is that it's not clear what the exit strategy is. So can you speak to that point, to that concern? What's the strategy? What's the exit plan here for the U.S.?
Well, again, I'm not exactly clear what the senator's referring to. Normally, when you talk about exit strategy, you're talking about getting American troops out of a war zone, that kind of thing. It's important to remember that we don't have American troops in Ukraine. Ukrainians are on their soil, and they're fighting for every inch of it. So I don't think they plan on going anywhere.
We are providing the military aid. We are providing the military aid and obviously financial aid.
They aren't planning on going anywhere. And the United States is committed to supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes to succeed on the battlefield. So if by exit strategy he's talking about an end of the war, I'd offer this. Mr. Putin could end it today if he just pulled his troops out of Ukraine where they don't belong. That probably isn't going to happen. The Ukrainians want this to end immediately, and we all want to see this war end. But it's got to end on terms that President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people can accept.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? The straight white male replacement for the affirmative action press secretary surprisingly doesn't know what DJ Vance means by exit strategy, right? Which, I mean, is clear in the context of what we're talking about here in the U.S.'s role in this war in Ukraine, which is, what is the U.S.'s strategy to stop sending money, right? At what point are we going to say enough is enough? But again, according to the straight white male press secretary substitute, he says, look, I don't know what the exit strategy is, right? I don't know what an exit strategy is. I don't know what he's talking about, right? Again, amazing, okay? Because there is no exit strategy, right? These people actually really want to fund this war into perpetuity, okay? That's exactly what they want to do. And part of the reason why is because you have American defense contractors benefiting, okay? They're getting rich. The military-industrial complex, they're benefiting. And you also have American propagandists, right, who are over there as well, too, who are benefiting. And that brings me to this person right here who has drawn some attention from DJ Vance, okay? And this person is a liberal activist by the name of Sarah Ashton Carrillo. Now, this is a very, very, very fascinating character. Again, this is a transgender woman who once pretended to be a Republican in order to infiltrate the GOP, okay? This person tried to infiltrate the Republican Party and tried to tie the Republican Party to the Proud Boys, basically working on behalf of liberal woke activists, okay? So again, this person right here is a very fascinating character who was a journalist, okay, went over to Ukraine to cover the war when it first started, ending up enlisting in the military, and now is like a spokesperson for the Ukrainian military. Now, again, this person is an American who decided to fight for Ukraine, literally, and again, is now a spokesperson in their military. Now, this person got the attention of DJ Vance because they posted a video online where they essentially, it sounded like, called for hunting down what this person describes as Russian propagandists, right? Issuing threats against people who are, I guess, pro-Putin or that push pro-Putin talking points, right? Which, you know what that means. That's basically anybody that disagrees with the establishment's narrative on this war. It sounded like this person was issuing a threat of violence. And JD Vance caught wind of this and asked leadership whether or not this person was being funded by American taxpayer dollars, right? Are they being funded by American taxpayer dollars to make these types of threats, which of course this person is, because the whole country of Ukraine is funded by the United States. We are their GDP. We are their economy at this point, right? And this person actually posted a video in response to JD Vance's inquiry, and this is what they had to say.
This is Sergeant Sarah Ashton Cirillo of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and I'd like to thank the X social media platform for carrying this exclusive message from Kyiv. There has been much discussion recently related to my role within the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Before answering some of the questions put forward by Senator Vance of Ohio, I'd like to thank all those in the U.S. who are supporting the Ukrainian people. Without Republicans and Democrats working together on behalf of Ukraine, our growing and unstoppable success on the battlefield and the inevitable victory it will bring over the Russian invaders would take significantly longer. The delivery of ATACMS will further expedite our victory while saving lives and tax dollars in the process. America is once more showing why it's history's greatest republic and the world's lone superpower, and all of us in Ukraine are humbled by the support we're receiving from the American people. Let me also take a moment in my role as spokesperson for the AFU's Territorial Defense Forces to state unequivocally that we in the TDF and across Ukraine believe journalists are heroes and have the right to report on Ukraine's war for liberation without interference. Free speech is the pillar of all democracy. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, along with the rest of that sacred document, is ordained by God. The Russian propagandists and war criminals who are spreading lies and pushing false narratives are not journalists. They are information agents and an extension of the Putin-Prigozhin effort to spread chaos and wreak havoc across the globe. In Ukraine, we do not seek vengeance, only justice. Because of this, these enemies of freedom and democracy will have to answer for their crimes in a court of law. Senator Vance recently asked the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, along with the Secretaries of State and Defense, if I was working in some capacity for the American government. Simply put, I'm an American serving as a Ukrainian infantry soldier and combat medic who was brought from the zero line and assigned to the TDF's media team in the dual role of spokesperson and Russian disinformation analyst. The remaining speculation surrounding me is disappointing. While in Ukraine we are fighting for global liberty and the ideology of victory, too many in Moscow and across the world are still caught up in focusing on the tired trope of gender chaos. Ukraine is a nation that embraces individual liberty and maintains a devotion to God. The freedom that Ukraine is fighting for is not based on carving out privilege for some, but creating a pathway to prosperity and success founded in hard work and the rule of law for all. Neither I nor any Ukrainian is fighting for tolerance and acceptance for any one group, but for the freedom of every human. This freedom is one that most closely resembles the heroic efforts of the American patriots in 1775. I've never been more proud to be a U.S. citizen as I am fighting on behalf of the Ukrainian people against the tyranny of Russia and their assorted enablers, all of whom are enemies of the United States. I'll finish by stating unequivocally that I only answer to three groups of people: my Ukrainian commanders, the Ukrainian people, and the American taxpayer. And in taking my responsibility to all three seriously, I have one goal: to help you return Ukraine to its legally recognized 1991 borders in the quickest and most efficient way possible. Doing so means saving Ukrainian and Russian lives. God bless America, and Slava Ukraini.
Yeah, so again, there's a whole lot of cognitive dissonance here, okay? Because what this person initially said in regards to their threats against journalists who don't go along with the establishment's narrative on this war is anti-free speech, right? It's anti-American, okay? Sounds a whole lot like, I don't know, fascism, right? And in response to J.D. Vance making an inquiry with the leaders in the defense about, hey, are we funding this with taxpayer dollars, right? Are we funding this type of nonsense, right? These type of threats. This person responds by essentially doubling down on their anti-free speech stance by basically saying, well, I believe in the free speech of journalists. However, people that disagree with me, right? People that are Russian journalists or that, you know, give the Russian side of the story or whatever, they're not journalists, right? So they're exempt, right? They're exempt from freedom of speech, okay? So we need to lock them up and throw them in jail for simply saying things that we disagree with, right? Which again is just, it's fascinating, right? It's fascinating how these liberals at every single turn show you that they don't actually care about democracy. They don't care about free speech. They don't care about equal rights. They don't care about any of this stuff, okay? It's almost as if this is just a talking point that they use against Republicans to smear them when they're the ones that actually really are the fascists, okay? They are the ones that don't really like democracy, okay? I'm just saying. But anyways, J.D. Vance actually responded to this person's response. I want to get it played clear.
So you've been scolded by the transgender Ukrainian American taxpayer-funded disinformation czar, Senator. Do you feel, rightfully humbled?
Well, Jesse, my first reaction when I saw this video was that SNL had somehow gotten funny again. I was sure that it was a big comedy skit, and I was not in on the joke. And then I shockingly learned that this is actually a real person who really does purport to represent the Ukrainian military, which of course is almost entirely funded at this point by the American taxpayer. Now here's the really crazy thing, Jesse, is the original video that I was responding to. This person, this Ukrainian spokesperson, says that anybody who engages in Russian propaganda is going to be hunted down, literally threatening violence against anybody who engages engages in, quote, Russian propaganda. But as you know, Jesse, multiple American journalists have been accused of engaging in Russian propaganda. Multiple members of the United States Senate have been accused. So are we really funding a military that is threatening the free speech rights of people who disagree with the Ukrainian war effort? That is preposterous, and it gives lie to the idea that this is all about freedom and democracy. If we're all about freedom and democracy, why are our paid guns threatening the free speech rights of all Americans?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Kind of crazy. Right. Kind of crazy to see some of the weird things that are coming out of this war and the people that are supporting, Ukraine and just, what they actually really believe in. Right. I'm just saying it's just fascinating stuff to see. OK, at every turn. OK, it really is. But Ukraine apparently is distancing themselves from this individual, right, from their transgender spokesperson after these comments, okay, because, again, I think this person kind of took it a little bit too far. The Ukrainian military announced Wednesday that American transgender spokesperson Sarah Ashton Carrillo, who has been serving as a junior sergeant for Ukraine, has been suspended for making unauthorized statements on social media, including criticism of U.S. Senator J.D. Vance, a Republican from Ohio. Earlier this week, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky ordered that Ashton Carrillo, who is not a Ukrainian but served as a military translator, be immediately dismissed. Wow. So basically, immediately fired, okay? Immediately fired. Quote, the statement of Sergeant Ashton Carrillo in recent days were not approved by the command of the TDF or the command of the AFU, the Ukrainian military posted on X, formerly known as Twitter. Quote, when conducting military operations against the aggressor, the defense forces of Ukraine strictly observe the norms of international humanitarian law. Yeah, so they're acknowledging that this person definitely made what could be considered to be threats, right? Threats against journalists who simply disagree with the establishment. The Ukrainian military will conduct an official investigation into Ashton Carrillo's comments and the circumstances behind them, and appropriate decisions would be taken, the Post said. Sergeant Sarah Ashton Carrillo will be suspended immediately pending the investigation. According to a source close to Zelensky, Ashton Carrillo was appointed to the role without his approval, and his office was deeply troubled. She has been providing messages inconsistent with his government views. The Ukrainian military did not elaborate on the statement about the comments in question, but earlier this week, Vance wrote a letter to the Biden administration officials demanding more information on her after she posted a video on social media claiming that Ukraine was going to, quote, hunt down Russian propagandists. Yeah, so, again, that's what the person said. And, after getting into a beef with J.D. Vance, getting exposed by J.D. Vance, the Ukrainian military decided to suspend this person. Now, again, I just think that the takeaway from this is that, one, there's a lot of weird things going on in Ukraine. Okay, I think there's a lot of people getting rich. But two, hey, this is kind of a sad situation, right? Because I really do want this war to end. Okay, I don't like the fact that Ukrainians are losing their lives. Okay, I don't like the fact that anybody's losing their lives. And it seems that our politicians, okay, our world leaders, instead of trying to come together and be diplomatic on this and let cooler heads prevail, they're determined to drive us into another world war that could possibly get nuclear, okay? Because this person said that they want to essentially return Ukraine back to where it was in regards to territory in 1991, which means that they would take back all of the territory that's taken over by Russia, with people who, may or may not be more Russian leaning in regards to who they support. I'm not sure if it's ever going to get to that point, right? I'm not sure if it's ever going to get to that point if there's not some type of nuclear attack along the way. I'm just saying, I don't like the sound of that, right? That sounds like this is never going to end unless it escalates to the level of nuclear war. That's what it sounds like the goal is from the former spokesperson of the Ukrainian military. I'm just saying, right? That's probably the main reason that this person got fired, is that they said the quiet part out loud about the end goal here, right? Which, again, nobody seems to know, including the White House, right? What are you talking about when you ask about what is the exit strategy? They don't know. Amazing. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.
Upon my inauguration, I will terminate every open border